We're going to jump into the mailbag. I know this is everybody's favorite segment because we often hear from Hector in Tucson. One problem. No email this week from Hector. My guess is he's kind of being swept up in this whole eclipse excitement. So no word. I don't know where he is. Hopefully he's doing okay. My guess is he's out in the desert somewhere just staring up at the sun, which is not a good idea, Hector. You might want to reconsider. Instead, we're going to take this question from Karen in Kerrville, Texas. Now, oddly enough, Kerrville, Texas is one of the best places in the United States to view the eclipse. So thank you for submitting your question, and I hope you enjoy your day staring up at the sky. The question is, hey guys, I'm managing social media for the restaurant I work at. The boss wants me to expand the number of social media channels that I manage, but I already feel overwhelmed. How many is too many? Karen, I can answer this question because I answer this question all the time when I'm out speaking and doing workshops. How many social media channels is too many? That's a question that is really hard to give an exact answer because it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the resources available to you in terms of how much time you have to manage social media, and ultimately how much money do you have to put behind social media. You also need to look at how much content you've got too, because as you start adding channels, not only do they require more time to manage and maintain, they also require content, because if you don't have content, what's the point in doing social to begin with? So my answer would be pick as many channels as you feel comfortable and capable of managing, but don't be afraid to cut something out, cutting out the bloat, just like we talked about websites, cutting out the bloat on social too. You might find over time that you're really struggling to maintain a certain platform, whether it be X or Facebook or whatever the case may be. I would rather you cut that out and focus on the other ones instead of trying to maintain something that you have no business in maintaining. Now, there's a bunch of factors that can go into this, like where is your audience hanging out to begin with? You might be spending a whole lot of time somewhere where your audience isn't necessarily spending a lot of time and you're wasting your time. But yeah, there's no right answer, but I've always been kind of the belief that I'd rather do one or two things extremely well than 3 or 4 or 5 things not very well. And I think from a brand perspective, you're going to go a lot further by focusing on a couple and doing them very well. You know, it's a restaurant that you're working at. I'd rather be the best restaurant in Kerrville, Texas on Facebook than a restaurant in Kerrville, Texas that's on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok with no real strategy behind anything. And I know, Duncan, you handle paid on our team. I'm imagining the same kind of things apply there when it comes to money. If you've only got so much money in the pot to maintain some sort of paid social media strategy, you don't want to thin that budget out across 5 channels, right? You're not going to get anywhere on a couple dollars a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. You got to spend your money wisely. And depending on what you want to achieve with your goals, that could mean anything from, just Google search for the low-hanging fruit, or it could be just awareness ads on social media or YouTube. I mean, it really does vary, but it largely does depend on your goals.
Yeah. And Ian, I know you've worked with me on a number of projects where we've worked with clients that have way too much going on social, and they can't maintain it whatsoever. And we basically go in, kind of set up the goals, figure out audiences, and then go, this one would work. Don't bother with this one, and just start cutting everything out.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with your comment about doing one well. Start with the one that your audience is on, or most of your audience is on. Do that well, and then once you've built that up, if you want to add another, then absolutely do it. But if you're expending the same amount of energy between 1 or 2, you're better doing 1 very well than doing 2 half as well as that.
Yeah. And from the content perspective, I think we'll touch on this. I've been thinking about this for a while. We'll do an episode where we touch a lot on content marketing strategy, because there's a variety of things we can talk about, both from the organic and the paid side. But when it does come to content is the gasoline that drives the social media engine. And if you don't have enough of it, nothing's going to work for you. But we'll maybe do an episode upcoming where we talk about repurposing, repackaging content, where, you know, you might do something for Instagram. How can you reuse that, repackage it, repurpose it to go over on YouTube or TikTok or wherever it might be? Because I think once you understand the idea of building out content in a content framework that allows you to repurpose and repackage, social media becomes a little bit easier. I actually was talking to Duncan, I think on Friday via text while I was outside barbecuing, and we were talking about the content that we create through something like the podcast. And I told him that, you know, with social media now, I feel it's like a battle trying to get any sort of organic reach across these channels. But when you can repackage, repurpose content, it just feels like you have way more ammunition than everybody else, because you've got so much that can go so many places that's a real power. So we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. But Karen, yeah, start small, do it really well. You can always expand out later, and don't forget about the paid aspect of social media too, and work that into your strategy too.